The left are very vocal with their racist condemnation of Britain as the only country involved in the African slave trade. But the actual truth is that the Portuguese were the first European country to buy slaves from African slavers in 1502, with 38.5% of the total, followed by the French with 13.6%, the Spanish with 17.5%, the Dutch with 2%, and the Danish with 0.3%, and then the British with 28.8%. Strange how it's only Britain that is demonised, when it was in fact Britain that ended the export of slaves from Africa. When in 1807 the Royal Navy blockaded the Western African coast, stopping all European ships from landing in African ports. They never mentioned that Africa had slave markets since the 6th century. No mention is also ever made of the Islamic slavery of the Barbary pirates, which enslaved over 1 million Europeans, including raids on the southern Irish and Cornish coasts. Also, the slave trade of the Ottoman Empire. But because those slaves were white, they don't fit into the left's cultural Marxist critical race theory and are ignored in order to make only Africans victims. The left also ignore the fact that on the passing of the Abolition of the Slave Trade Act by the British Parliament in 1807, the Royal Navy formed the West African Squadron in order to blockade the ports of the West African slave markets. Over 2,000 British sailors gave their lives in stopping the African slave trade. In doing so, freed 150,000 people from the slave ships. 1837, Britain passed the Slave Compensation Act to compensate slave owners in the Caribbean, Mauritius and the Cape of Good Hope. A total of £20 million was paid to slave owners in order to free their slaves. That's a total of £2,646,389,443.09 in today's money. And every British taxpayer from 1837 to 2017 paid towards paying back the loan. No other country did the same. Only Britain freed the slaves. So why is Britain the only country demonised? Now for the left's ridiculous demand for reparations. Reparations are only paid to those that have suffered, not to the relations of those that live generations later. Because in that case, Britain would be justified in demanding reparations from Italy for the slavery of the Romans from Denmark, and Norway for the slavery of the Vikings, and also the French for the slavery imposed by the Normans. The word serf is Norman for slave, not forgetting the genocide of the third of the English population in the harrowing of the North. If the left actually believed in compensating victims of slavery, they would be demanding money from Germany, because over 2 million people were forced into slavery by the Nazi murder machine in order to build BMWs, Mercedes, Volkswagens, Opels and Porsches, the very cars that those hypocrites now drive. Is the reason the left are ignoring those that survived the Nazi slavery because they were white Europeans? So who are the racists now?